Okay, so just so everyone knows who I am and why I'm moderating, in case you don't know me, I am an alum. My name's Natalie Mackis, and I'm now the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement at Marlboro. I graduated in '09, so I'm very happy to have Kristen and Cara here tonight. So we'll start. Kristen Azevedo, class of '98. Works in the music business and legal affairs department at Netflix, where she has served as legal counsel for 3 years. And she supports the animated film genre, handling the negotiations and drafting of various music deals and agreements for composers, songwriters, artists, music producers, and music supervisors. And Cara Adams, class of 2010, recently joined YouTube Google, where she serves as Associate Music Counsel on the label, artist, and podcast team. And in this role, she manages drafts and analyzes a wide variety of music and video content licensing and distribution agreements for YouTube's growing digital media business. She also advises on legal issues, deals, and policy development relating to the use of music across the entire spectrum of Google products. So thank you so much for being here tonight, both of you. I think this is going to be a really great conversation. First, though, I'd really love for you guys to just share a bit about your time at Marlboro and what your interests were. Were you involved in any clubs or sports or extracurriculars? Where could someone find you on any day during your time at school? Either of you can start.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So let me see if I can remember. So I did dance dimensions. I remember being very involved in the arts, dance. I think the seventh grade play, but more focused on dance there. I also remember doing a lot of student government. I think I was the assembly coordinator my senior year. I always thought that was fun and a good way to like connect with my classmates. I think I ended up doing it kind of every year. And something else I remember was ACE, which was the kind of the Black Student Union, the organization for the African American students. It was, I don't want to say it was new at the time. Maybe it was like, I don't know, or maybe it was fairly new. And so we got to kind of like shape the programming, which was fun. We always did like the soul food lunch. It was just a really good way for me to kind of connect with other Black students in the class. So yeah, I think those were kind of like the main things that I was involved in on top of the academics.
I played volleyball. That was my big thing in high school for sure. I played varsity all 4 years, and I also did club year round from 7th to 12th grade, and then went to UCSB to play volleyball. So that was my thing for sure, volleyball. But I remember liking the creative writing class a lot, and an art history class taught by Dr. Whitaker. And I ended up majoring in art history actually in college, and that really stuck with me. I loved it.
Wow. I'm an advisor now, and one of my students is in like club and this team at Marlboro, and I'm just I can't even imagine balancing that schedule and doing homework and being at school. It's just crazy. Very cool, very different, interests as students. So it's curious, neither of you mentioned anything about music. And so I would love for you guys to share, how you ended up in law school, and then like how it evolved into this space specifically where you guys are, so focused on music every day at your jobs.
Yeah, it's true. So in high school, to be totally honest, like, yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I wasn't honestly thinking about it. I was kind of just like focused on my classes, my APs, my grades, getting into a good school. I didn't really think beyond that. So it was really in college where I went to NYU. And NYU is a school, I mean, everybody knows there's like no traditional campus, but it's like a very, like you hit the ground running. I noticed a lot of freshmen around me had like internships, and I was just like, whoa, like I thought I was coming here to study and to party, but like everyone worked. So I quickly was like, well, let me find something. And I was drawn to the music internships at a bunch of different labels. I started at EMI when I was a sophomore, I think, and enjoyed it. I was doing marketing, tour marketing. So then from there went to Def Jam for a summer, which was amazing. It was when I'm a big Frank Ocean fan, and it was when Channel Orange came out. So I thought that was really, a really cool time to be there. And so, yeah, I ended up like really enjoying those internships and then taking some classes in the space. Because again, it's like I was always a fan of music, but I never really knew that one could like work in the industry. I never thought about it. So I think NYU really opened my mind to those possibilities. And I remember, yeah, so I was doing like tour marketing, but I kind of like wanted more. And I laugh at myself now looking back. So I'm just like this 19-year-old, like I just started making scheduling meetings with a bunch of music lawyers just to talk to them, see what they did. And I loved it. And so I decided in college that I was going to take the LSAT, go to law school, and kind of make it happen. So it was I guess it was a long journey, like from college to now. But that's really kind of when it started.
That sounds awesome. Those internships sound like they must have been so fun. And to be in New York and starting
Yes.
out in the music industry, I'm sure it was a really fun experience. And meeting music attorneys and all that's great. I grew up doing film production, actually. A lot of people in my family are producers, and so I thought I wanted to be a film producer also. And it wasn't until even in college, I wasn't sure what I wanted. I mean, I thought the film route, but I was doing an art history major. And then as I was working in production, I realized I didn't really want to be on set forever. I wanted to do more of the business side of the industry. And my parents, being producers, were like, you should really go to law school because lawyers run Hollywood. You have to be able to put deals together. So I went to law school to be a lawyer in the film industry / producer and kind of figure out my way in the entertainment industry. But when I got out, I was working at a firm and representing independent filmmakers. And I kind of started gravitating towards music deals and music clients. I had friends that were musicians trying to get their careers going, and I started taking on their deals if they were going to sign with a label or whatnot. And I realized I just love music more. I go to shows all the time. I go to every festival. I love live music, and I don't see many films, and I kind of just realized this is where my passion is more, and I wanted to focus more on music. So then I got an opportunity to go in-house at Universal Music, and that was my first time at the music industry, and I loved it a lot. So that was it was a slow meander to find my way.
That's really cool, though. I love both of your stories, how they kind of ended up where you are today. It's very cool. So question about advising your friends, like you just mentioned, and I'm sure, Cara, you've done this too. When you're advising your friends, what would you say back then? Now that you are advising the companies that you work at, I'm sure it's very different than when you're advising the creative directly, who's writing this music or putting their like heart and soul into this like creation. How has that shifted?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, because yeah, for me, I've only been, so I was at a firm doing non-music work, so that's not important. But then, yes, I was at Warner Bros. For a bit, where I was doing all of the music deals. So Warner Bros. The film studio, not the music company. But I was doing the music deals for the film. So for the soundtracks, all of the producers and artists that we hired, I would do that paperwork. The composers, the supervisors. So yes, to your point, Natalie, like I was on the other side, like I would be negotiating against artists and their reps. And then now I'm actually doing less talent deals here at YouTube, and I'll get into kind of like what I'm doing now a little bit later. But yeah, I think as a lawyer, like it's important to be able to see both sides. That's like what you learn in law school. You learn how to think like a lawyer. So during my time at Warner Bros, like it was really important for me to, think back to the times where I wasn't at Warner Bros. And where I was more so on the artist side, like helping my friends out, because they didn't know, like, the provisions in these deals, because they can be really complex. I realize I'm like rambling and not fully answering the question, so stop me if I'm like going to off course. But all of it is really to say, like, I do feel that I now have a good sense, even though I'm on the company side. I feel like it actually makes me, it makes me better, and it makes me better able to help out friends who come to me. Obviously, I cannot, take on clients because that would be a conflict of interest, and like, you can't do that. But just kind of being able to steer my friends in the right direction always feels good, because I've like seen the deals from the other side. I know kind of hot issues that come up and that are like hotly negotiated. So yeah, it's like you just kind of you learn to see from different angles and to like wear many different hats through working for these companies.
I also think that if you follow your interests and your passions, then you'll kind of find your way to where you want to be. And every experience that I had on the way ended up rounding out where I'm at so well that I could never have seen that coming. I mean, I started in production and then I went to music and then I went back into a music attorney in the production space. And I just would have never like thought that that was going to be my path. When I started out, I thought I was going to be film only. Then I was in the music industry. I was like, this is it for me. And then somehow they kind of all wove together. I think, you know, Cara, you had a clearer vision of what you wanted from the get-go. And so, but all those stepping stones within the industry, I'm sure it has made you like so well-rounded now for like giving guidance in any, you know, aspect of the industry. So
It's true. I was gonna add like, yeah, because I think the music industry, like there are just, if you think of an artist and you think of all the ways that they can make money in this business, like there are just so many ways. Like you can have a sync placement in a film or in a commercial. You can have an endorsement deal, like you're selling albums, you're streaming, like there are just so many avenues through which an artist and their team can make and collect revenue. So yeah, so you know, Kristen and I have at this point just like seen those different sides, and that makes us better and more well-rounded ultimately.
I would also, oh, sorry, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Kristen.
A thing that I really try when I like talk to younger people who are trying to figure out their career also is just to know, I think before you're in the music industry, you just kind of think you can only be an artist and that's it, you know, and you have so little understanding of what goes on behind the scenes. But certainly my first foray was at Universal Music Publishing, which represents the songwriters and signed songwriters. And I didn't even know that artists didn't write their own music or mostly write their own music. And there's just so many different roles within the music and the film industries that are supportive of all like the finished product that everyone sees on the screen or on the radio. And it's cool, like everyone in the music industry, at least, or even like the music BLA in the film industry, we all are huge music fans. A lot of people went to like Berklee School of Music, people were in bands, people did more creative things and they want to do the business side of it. So I think there's just like a lot of roles in the industry that people aren't aware of. Music supervision, clearance and licensing work, obviously lawyers, creative in-house at companies. There's just a lot of things you can do.
Yeah, it's something we try and show current students. Actually, there's an event called Share the Wisdom each year with the juniors, and we try and bring in people who can show all the different roles that you can play in the world outside of, you know, even just within being a lawyer, like how many different types of lawyers there are and how many, you know, roles can be played in everything. I used to work in production and I would always be just shocked at how many people it took to create one ad or one commercial or, you know, but yeah, I think it's awesome that you guys have just gathered all this experience. And I always joke it's the best friends in the world are lawyers because they can just help you in so many ways. I never really appreciated that both my parents are lawyers until being an adult, but it really is the best. So I would love for you guys to talk about kind of more what you do now, because I do know that there's a lot of overlap, especially Cara, what you were doing at Warner Brothers with what Kristen does now or does at Netflix. And so if you guys can just kind of talk us through what you guys do and share more about that, I think it'd be really interesting to hear that.
I'll start again. So I'll talk about what I'm doing currently at YouTube. It's funny, I just started, I guess 5 or 6 months ago, August 1. So I still feel very new and I still feel like I'm learning what it is that I do. But so far I can say like, it's been, so, you know, it's a tech company. So I'm a music lawyer at a tech company, which is in itself just like very new. YouTube is like, before I started, I thought of it as just like this platform where you share videos. I have since learned it's so much more complex and actually like they're doing so much for the music industry. So YouTube used to be like an enemy of the industry. I remember in college, all of my music classes were just like, YouTube is the wild, wild west. Anybody can go on there and upload any song. They can steal from artists and songwriters. Like, they were seen as a really bad actor. It's not the same anymore. Like, there are still obviously challenges in getting public perception to where I think the company wants us to be. But I mean, just seeing how far they've come in just like 8 to 10 years is really amazing. Now, like, Leor Cohen, who's actually the global head of music at YouTube, he announced that in 2022, the platform was able to pump, I think, over $6 million into the industry, which is huge. Because basically we are now working in partnership with the labels. Like, we understand that we don't want users, coming onto the platform and sharing other people's work or, infringing upon other people's copyrights. Like, that we're not in the business of doing. We really do want to partner with the major labels and all indie labels to license their songs for a fair price that allow our users to use the platform and have fun. We have like YouTube Shorts now, which is kind of the, TikTok's, which we're trying to be their rival. So we want our users to be able to seamlessly use songs. And so to do that, we have a team of lawyers. I'm on a team of, I think, where are we at now? 9 lawyers, where we just kind of facilitate those partnerships between YouTube and the labels. We obviously have to do a lot of internal deals with them, just in terms of, the rev share models, like how they're going to get paid out for each usage. So there's a lot of back and forth there, but ultimately it's true deal making. Like, we're truly trying to work with the labels rather than against them, which I understand like used to be the case. So that's kind of one aspect of what I'm currently doing. We also do this thing. So I didn't know before starting at YouTube, but the company calls it product counseling. Well, I guess most tech companies call it that, but that is where anytime Google is putting out a product that involves music. So like, I guess an example would be, I don't know, there's like so many, my mind is blanking. Today's been a long day, but like anytime there's a new launch of some kind of feature on a Google product that uses music, like the internal engineers, product managers, they have to come to us. Like, I think they would prefer they would love to just be able to launch whatever they want, but we can't. Like, there are laws in the US and all over the world that have to be complied with. And so the internal teams always have to come to us for final approval. So we facilitate that process, and that involves a lot of just like issue spotting, like, which is what we did in law school, where you're really just like looking at a set of facts, you're looking at the launch, and you're raising issues. There might be issues with privacy or competition and copyright. It really is kind of, I like this work because I feel like we get a chance to kind of like be creative and kind of be a part of the process in a way that I didn't really know lawyers could do. So that's been another huge part of what I'm currently doing, that product counseling work, and just making the process really seamless for our internal teams. So that was a really long-winded answer. And like I said, I'm learning every single day. The platform is super complex. I think I mentioned Shorts. There's a lot going on with like the licensing structure there. So the music lawyers are super busy. But yeah, I'm enjoying my time so far.
Nice. So I'm in music, business, and legal affairs at Netflix, and Netflix divides each department based on genre. So I support the animated film genre, which is a new studio that just started like 7 years ago. And so I do all of the deals for original music put into the animated films. So when a composer writes an original score, when we need 7 songs written for the film, for animated film to carry along the narrative, when we have a voice actor sing that song as a character in the film, when we have an artist sing an end title, bigger version of the song that's going to be released with marketing on the radio, and music supervisor deals, and like multi-service deals. We've been doing more and more deals where we'll have one talent come in and kind of we call them the music guru, where they'll just be in charge of like the entire music direction, songwriting, some vocals and singing for the film. So they'll have like a multi-service role. So that's the heart of what I do. And it's really fun. I like it a lot. It's my favorite job I've had because I'm kind of closer to the creative process than I've ever been, because I really work closely with the music creative production department, which are the go between the producers and filmmakers and all of the, idea meetings. And as the story unfolds, the music team supports all of the music direction of the film. And then I do the deals with the music team.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds like both of you get to be very creative. I mean, I think just the nature of being a lawyer, you have to be creative, but you get to work now also with the creatives and being in that space, which I'm sure makes it all the more interesting. So what has been like the more challenging part of the work that you do? What would you guys say is just either harder to navigate or a harder deal to kind of work through, like obviously without any specifics, but like what are the more challenging parts of your jobs?
I think you're on mute, maybe. No, I can hear you.
I am on mute. Thank you.
Okay.
There's a lot of challenging parts of this job. So I'm like, let me pick which one. I actually do think, so one thing I've been learning at YouTube, so YouTube is like this huge, it's a huge company. There are a lot of stakeholders, a lot of big personalities. Like, so there are big personalities in the music industry in general. And then I think with YouTube, you just add the layer of these like really smart people, like in all the departments. Like the engineers blow my mind. I'm just like, I don't know how you guys do what you do. But so yeah, you have like this collection of really smart, really talented, really competent people. And as lawyers, like we really have to balance, obviously we have to, advise our clients to comply with laws, of course, but it's just, it goes beyond that, where we have to really satisfy like so many different people every single day. And that's honestly really hard to do. Because, we don't ever want to be like the block to something. Like we don't ever want a team within YouTube or Google to say like, we can't do this amazing, innovative thing and put it out into the world because the evil lawyers are stopping us from doing it. So like we really are cognizant of that. But we do, like I said, we have to balance that with literal laws. And then also with our contracts, like so we mentioned earlier, like we manage kind of the relationship with the music industry partners, with the labels. And we have to honor what we agree to with them. So I have noticed that a lot of times, like a deal that was negotiated maybe like 2-3 years ago didn't really contemplate something happening that now happens. And I'm being vague on intentionally. I obviously can't say too much, but I hope it's still making sense. But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of times where like a point was not really thought through a couple of years ago, and like that being no one's fault. It just wasn't a thing. Technology is always changing, as we know. So things come up that you didn't anticipate. And then, yeah, we kind of find ourselves in a place where we want more rights than we had initially negotiated, but we lawyers have to step in and remind everybody, like, we don't have those rights yet. We haven't renegotiated the deal with Sony, for example. So how can we like maintain that relationship with the industry while also making internal teams happy? I'm finding is like really challenging. I have faith that I will continue to grow and continue to get better at managing those different relationships and dynamics, but I would say that is like something that's been really challenging so far.
Yeah, that's a lot of big players, a lot of moving parts. I can imagine it does sound like the worst case scenario, but it must happen where like you just can't agree on something, right? Like I can see that happening. But I'm sure it's really hard to navigate all that.
I was at Universal from 2009 to 15. And I think first, all the initial deals that were happening with all the new platforms, especially YouTube and Facebook. And yeah, the deals were so intense because we were resistant to give away our rights to unknown, not unknown, but like unestablished platform on mediums that we weren't even sure were going to like exist or how they were going to exist. So yeah, that was really challenging at the time. I'm sure it continues to be challenging as it evolves, but we have similar challenges because we kind of, as streamers, we're, a somewhat new platform, and even though Netflix is more established now, and I think all the players want to work with us and be, featured and part of our productions. In general, all the deal making is really hard because everything feels like you're establishing precedent.
Yeah.
And even though there's not, we do have a customary practices within the industry that we can lean on, like this is the way it's always been done, and therefore we're going to continue it this way. The people that we need the rights from are seizing any opportunity they can to find cracks and to kind of like, push the precedent more in their direction. So there's just kind of feels like there's a lot on the line with every deal point, and there's a lot of moments in my deals where it's kind of a make or break moment where we might not even be able to get the deal done because Netflix precedent is on the line. And it's just not something we want to budge on or be vulnerable to in the future deals. So that's interesting to be a part of. Also, there's really intense label wars happening right now that we're kind of in the middle of. And so deals with artists are really aggressive and intense because labels are very resistant to forego any rights to their signed artists when they invest in artists and they want exclusive rights. The last thing they care about is my production that, we want the artist to be in, and my soundtrack that I want to release potentially on a competing label's distribution. So it's like a dance between the artists wanting to do our production badly enough to lean on their label, but not too much because maybe they just got a huge advance and they don't actually have a lot of leverage when it comes to that own relationship. So it's kind of this thing that we've been dealing with. It's been hard. It's been challenging.
I was gonna add, I thought as you were, that perfectly captured, I think, what was going on at Warner Bros. But then also I see similarities, like both YouTube and Netflix are these companies that are considered like disruptors and like sometimes upset the industry. But, I ultimately think that, I love what both companies are doing, like just pushing everything forward. But I'll also say like something that's difficult that kind of comes with that is just like the heightened scrutiny and like the spotlight that we're under. Like I know in a lot of our meetings, that comes up, like we talk about like, this decision to your point, Kristen, like, precedent, like this decision is going to be under a microscope in the media. It's going to affect the whole tech industry, the whole music industry. Like it's just, these are like really big questions. And so, I think that is definitely another challenge that I'm kind of seeing is going to be ongoing when you work at a company like Netflix or like YouTube.
Yeah, especially products that you want to put out into the market to kind of lead the pack. Good for business, good for consumers, keep them wanting more, but you can't because of legal reasons.
Yeah.
There's a lot on the line with those kind of conversations.
Yeah, I can say, and this one I especially can't go into detail, but there's a lot, like I'm sure some of you have read in the news, like there's a lot going on right now surrounding AI, generative AI. That's like huge at our company, and that has huge implications on the music industry. And you can imagine like the labels are hesitant to, they've got a lot of questions. We also have questions. Like there's just a lot of unknown, a lot of gray area, which I think makes the job fun. It's like, I don't think I'll ever be bored here. But like that's a challenge. So something like AI, where I'm just like, I thought this was going to be happening like years in the future. It's here now. How do we deal with it from a legal perspective? It can get pretty gnarly, but it's super interesting.
I'd also say that I think back in the day, the biggest companies could kind of just do their thing. And it was very much this attitude of like, do you want to, be signed with us or not kind of thing. They could kind of lean on that. And nowadays, big companies, you know, like YouTube and definitely at Netflix, we have to be very nimble and think outside the box. And there's, you know, I can never say that's just how we do it. That line doesn't exist anymore, or at least not for us. We have to always find like creative ways to find solutions for, you know, issues that come up in the deal making. And I think in other bigger companies, it was harder to be nimble, and it very much was just the way things were done. And that was kind of a party line that I could use, I could lean on, and that's makes my life easier. Now I have to get more creative and be more accommodating.
Right.
So it's a challenge.
Might be a silly question, but what if the artist, you mentioned these label wars, like what if the artist wants to be part of this movie, but then the label is the one blocking it? Like, do you guys ever work with the artist, or do you ever find ways to get around it? Like, I'm sure you guys have run into something like that, right? Where it's kind
Most of the time, yeah, because the artists will come in, they'll meet with the filmmakers, directors, they'll see the storyboard, they'll see the, you know, what the project is, and they'll fall in love with it, and that's why they want to do it. But then it just depends. It really depends on the relationships and who's involved and who's in the artist camp and what their kind of relationship is with the label. But even if they want to be involved, at some point, the agent and the artist step out, and me and the label have to figure out a deal. And you know, the labels are aggressive, like how, you know, what I said, they don't really care about my production. They're starting from 0 and I'm starting from 100, and we're trying to figure out, you know, a way to get it done.
Yeah, that's how it was at Warner Bros. Like it was, we ultimately would always get it done. But yeah, it's like you're never really, if an artist is signed, like you've got to go through the label, you've got to talk to them, you've got to negotiate with them. Because of their deal with their artist, like their separate record deal with the artist gives them a lot of rights that we can't just ignore. Like we have to go through them. But like Kristen said, like you know, you start at opposite ends of the spectrum, but you eventually do kind of get there most of the times, obviously not all the time.
Yeah. They have, I mean, when push comes to shove, if their artist wants to do it, they don't want to block an opportunity. But they have an exclusive recording agreement with that artist. And so in order for us to use that artist in another way outside the deal, they have to sign a waiver to allow it.
Right.
So the default position is like, there's no one can have rights other than the label.
Yeah.
So when you say recording, what if it's just voiceover work? Maybe this isn't like totally on par with what you guys focus on, but I'm just, if it is a musician, let's say, and they're going to just be a voice of a character, could that be a workaround, or is it like just music, or is it anything with their voice at all? Like kind of where does that fall? I know it's a pretty specific question for you, Kristen, and Cara, if you did this at Warner Brothers too, I'm curious.
We, our BLA will handle the actor deals, but we do voice actor deals with recording artists, and everything's fine until we want them to sing.
Yeah.
If we want them to sing and have a vocal singing performance, that's the part that the label has exclusively, and that's where we step in, the music BLA. But they could come in and act, and that would be easier.
Right.
So yeah, I think for anyone listening or watching this in the future who's a creative themselves, I know we kind of touched on this before, but I feel like we talked a lot about like how complex these issues are. So I would be curious to know, like, what is that advice that you would share with your friends, or a young person who's like, you know, I have this song, I'm being approached, who should I talk to first? Like, let's say they're not signed with a label. I think it could be really scary and daunting, and they can very easily be manipulated by, like, you know, big names and big opportunities. And I would just, what do you guys want people to know, you know, before stepping into that kind of room, or that, you know, following through with that opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. Like it can be really scary if this is a new experience, if you've never had a company approach you wanting to use your work, or if you've never read a music contract. Like, you know, these contracts are very dense. There are a lot of pages. Like I totally get like that initial fear. So this gets tricky because like I do think the best advice is like you do need to get a lawyer to read through everything for you. But I mean, that can be really, you know, cost prohibitive for some people. Like lawyers are expensive. So I understand you can't always say like go out and hire a lawyer. I do emphasize for people though, like it is critical that you understand every single provision, every word in your contract before signing it. Like when a company approaches you, like I can use Warner Bros. As an example, like if they find a producer or an artist who they want to, work on a track and as a work made for hire for the company, like they're going to send along standard paperwork. At Warner Bros, like those were the deals that I put together. But then, yeah, on the other side, like, yeah, you need to understand everything. Like, what rights are you giving up? What rights are you gaining? How much you're getting paid? What is the royalty rate? Like, these things are like really critical to understand. And yeah, if you don't have representation, you might miss a lot of things. So I really always do say, like, try to get some legal eyes on it if you can. And specifically someone in music. I know I have friends who like will go to any kind of lawyer, and that's a problem because if you don't work in entertainment and music specifically, I do feel like some of the issues like get a little bit too complex. So it's not really helpful to have like your friend who's a real estate attorney review your music deal. I guess it's better than nothing, but like I don't know. I do think it's important to like seek out somebody who understands these complex agreements so that you know exactly what you're signing up for. And then from there, I think that extends to another piece of advice I have, which is just to not be afraid to like ask for things. I have one of my best friends who I actually met at Marlboro. Her little brother is a filmmaker and he's doing great work for a lot of different brands. But whenever he's kind of new in his career, so whenever he comes to me with questions, he's very like timid. He's like scared to ask the company for things because in his mind, he's like, this is a great opportunity. Like, I don't want to ruin anything. And I get that. And I tell him, these companies expect you to negotiate. It's not crazy to ask for whatever it is that whatever based on your leverage, whatever it is that you want more of. Like companies are used to that. It's not crazy to negotiate a little bit. The overall fee, you can ask for a higher number. You might ask for a higher royalty rate. It's just, I just want to make sure that people understand like it is okay to ask for things and that you in fact should not sign an agreement as it is when it comes to you, because when it comes to you, it's totally in favor of the company and you're the one you're the talent, like you have the song that they want to use. So you can kind of, negotiate a bit. Obviously it's based on your leverage. So a new artist is not going to have the same negotiation power as a superstar, but that's kind of something that you can lean into a lawyer to help you figure out like what is appropriate and what's not appropriate to ask for. So again, another long-winded answer, but those are like the two main things that I think are important for someone to know.
Yeah, I think you definitely just need to get an attorney to look it over for you. I mean, even if you can do just an hourly or something over the principal terms of the agreement and not get into all the boilerplate or something, but at a minimum, someone who's versed in this, because music law is very nuanced. It's actually a really small community of people who work as music attorneys in the music industry and even smaller music attorneys in the film industry. And it's pretty complicated, the various rights that are involved. And even, your royalty might be a percentage, but then the way that the royalty is determined is a whole nother host of issues where every word matters. So I would think even, maybe you can even negotiate in the fee to have additional money added to cover the legal costs or something like that, to help out with that. But at least, get someone's eyes. Anyone who does this all day long can look at a contract within an hour and just point out like the basic things that you would go back to a company asking for and not get into the weeds too much. And if there's, you don't have the leverage, you don't want to have some major red line and go back and forth for 8 drafts, but at least have someone look over who has a clue, and maybe they can try to keep it short so it's more affordable.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. It's definitely start with a lawyer, and at least the real estate attorney could maybe just point out some red flags, and then you could go find someone who knows what they're talking about.
Like attorneys in other fields, they can look at the boilerplate stuff. But honestly, even our film BLA, who we work with, and they, there is overlap from time to time. They they're really lost when it comes to the music parts of the deals, and they're handling all sorts of deals all the time that I don't do either. But when it comes to music, they just, they just really don't know what they're doing, and because it's just not the field that they practice in.
Yeah. And like, you can tell, like, I remember, at Warner Bros, I would be able to tell when I was dealing with a true music attorney versus someone who was mostly in production, just like kind of like finding their way through the agreement. Cause I think to Kristen's point, like there are just some really nuanced and like fine issues that I think you're going to miss if you don't, work in this field on a daily basis.
Yeah, my dad's intellectual property attorney. So it's just like, oh my God, the details. I can't even believe what he notices. Like he sometimes consults me on social media stuff because he's like, what is a hashtag? Or like, what is a tag post? And he's like asking all these questions, but then he's like, yeah, that person wasn't allowed to tag us in the post. I'm like, I think anyone's allowed to tag a brand in a post, but whatever. It just gets so complicated. I can't, and very quickly. But well, thank you guys. I would love to kind of end this conversation the way we started and talk about kind of your interests, but more currently. So outside of your work, what are you guys doing on the weekends? What are you guys up to these days outside of all this incredibly hard work you guys do every day?
I know it's like important to take a step away from work and have actual hobbies. So I actually did start, I got back into dance, into ballet. I go to this like adult ballet studio in Mid-City. That's so fun. There's like women of all ages. It's really great and like a good workout. So I got back into that. I've also been boxing lately, which is another fun activity. Great for lawyers because you can like let out aggression that you might be holding in from work. So
Yes.
that's fun. I also love to travel. I definitely like I make sure to use my vacation days and make sure I like fulfill that part of me that I need. And I think too, I like to just take advantage of LA and the outdoors, the beach, hikes. I'm very cold these days, so I haven't been able to do that, but I was excited for warmer days ahead. So yeah, those are just a couple of things that I've been up to outside of work.
Yeah, I love seeing live music any chance I get in any city, any genre, really. Especially in LA in the fall. I feel like there's so many good shows always. And I love to travel. I think being a student for so long, I got to study abroad a couple times and backpacked around a lot. So I still love to keep that up. And I have 2 kids, an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. So they're a lot of fun to hang out with too.
Nice. Well, thank you guys so much. It was so interesting hearing from you. I loved learning about it, and I'm sure everyone else did too. And this is going to be available on our Marlboro YouTube channel. And I'll share that in it's in the Aiming High like our Instagram link. So thank you guys. I hope to see you on campus. Kristen, I'll see you at Alumni Day.
Wow, super. Thanks for inviting us. This is fun.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Of course. Cara, it was great to see you, and I hope to see you soon. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.